Wait, I have a really funny intro to do for the thing.
You want to take it away?
Yeah. Well, you'll see. You'll see.
Oh, like just for when you say your name,
No, don't. I'll start it.
you will start it. Do you know what to
Yeah.
say? Do you have the text in front
No,
of
I
you?
won't. I'm not gonna say the actual text. You'll just see.
Is this it?
You guys ready?
Is this intro in the room with us
No,
right
no.
now?
Are you guys ready?
I am ready.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting now.
Okay, guys. Who am I? Ah!
Oh my God, are you Beau?
And are you
Yeah.
afraid?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Ah! Okay. Hey guys, what's up, listeners? That was a terrible intro. This is gonna suck. What's up, listeners? Welcome to Predator versus Movies. Woohoo!
Woo.
I'm Alex,
I'm Peter.
I'm Aiden.
and we're
Are you
not
sure?
afraid.
Are you
Oh
afraid?
man.
Oh, I am Bo, and I am afraid. That's
Exactly.
true.
And this is a podcast where we discuss and review the latest movie releases. We're going to start off with a non-spoiler review before diving into a deeper discussion of the film, and then we're going to ask the most important question: would this movie be better if the alien from Predator was in it? This week we're going to be reviewing Beau is Afraid, previously known as Disappointment Boulevard, by Ari Aster. Before we get into it, we have news, I guess.
Yeah.
Based on the success of the Mario movie, it's doing very well financially. Some guy who Aiden knows the name of.
Oh, I don't.
You
Oh,
said it
shit.
to me. You said it to
I
me
did
like
say
2
it, but I was
seconds ago.
reading when I said it.
Oh no. Okay. So some guy,
Hold on.
like just a random guy on the street. They
I think
just
it's a big
asked, like,
Nintendo guy.
I mean, or it could be just like some guy. They asked
Yeah.
him, and he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do the Nintendo CU. They're gonna make a whole bunch of Nintendo."
It's Miyamoto.
movies. Miyamoto is gonna
Yeah.
make a bunch of this random guy named Miyamoto, no connection to Nintendo, is gonna make a bunch of Nintendo movies. I don't know if they're Mario
Yeah.
specifically, probably, but also
I
maybe not.
I would not be surprised if they do like a Mario Zelda,
No matter.
I think Zelda's not.
yeah, whatever the hell's that, and then like leading up to a Smash Bros movie, which would be
Smash
terrible.
Bros is their Avengers Endgame, I think.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Or actually, more accurately, it would be their Secret Wars, which
Yeah.
is where also unfortunately Marvel is going towards as well. What would you guys want out of a Nintendo CU, if anything?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't want
Yeah.
that, to be honest with you.
No
like they're-
thanks.
Like I love the Zelda games, and I think they should stay that way. The games are really good. They don't need to be movies. Like that's pretty much how I feel about it.
You don't want a Fast and Furious Mario Kart?
If they do something that's really goofy like that, actually maybe. Like if it was something that was like really dumb and they were adapting like Mario Kart or something and they just made it like a Fast and Furious movie. Like that might be okay. But I don't want to see anything like what the Mario movie was.
Yeah, that spawns two ideas in my head. One is, I don't know if you remember, but after the success of the Lego movie, they were going to do a whole bunch of spin-offs, one of them being a racing movie that never happened. So that actually is kind of like, they tried it before. And the other idea has vanished from my head. But like, I don't think that the Nintendo people have the creativity to... like, and I don't think it's that they lack creativity. I think it's more that they're playing it so safe.
Yeah, they're not
especially-
striving to be creative. Yeah.
No, they're trying to be like as generic as possible. It's very much what happened with Black Adam, really. Just trying to go for the safest, middle of the road, boring option there is because it should work, right? And it sort of does, at least financially. So good for them, I guess. I still think, based on where the Mario movie ended and like what it did, I think they can still do what we were pitching as what it should have been for the first time, like a Mario and Luigi movie. That's
Yeah.
very much on the table from where it ended. Now they're both in the Mushroom Kingdom, and like you can actually explore that brother thing and build off
Yeah.
of what happened in the last movie and pretend it didn't happen, maybe.
Yeah, if they
Very,
write the second one as if the first one didn't happen, that's the ideal scenario, I think.
It's very Evil Dead 2, which is, I don't know if you guys have seen that one,
I've
but
never
it's
seen any of them.
Evil Dead, it's called Evil Dead 2, and it's literally just the first one. again. They just did it again, and with a slightly bigger budget and a little sillier. It's very interesting. Anyways, we are actually skipping the trailer park this week because there were no trailers that we found interesting enough to talk about.
That is good news from me as the owner of the trailer park, and I don't have to have these guys whipping around on their motorcycles shooting their guns in the air anymore.
Get a peace and quiet for once.
Yeah, that's a callback.
Yeah. It's the lore. You gotta listen to the other episodes. Anyways, Aiden, we watched a movie this week, and there's some information.
We sure did. So we watched a movie known as Beau is Afraid. It was directed and written by Ari Aster. That's a weird order to put those words in, Alex. It should be written and directed. It was starring Joaquin Phoenix.
I'm going by the Wikipedia order. It's okay. Yeah, whatever.
We're starring Joaquin Phoenix, Patty Lupone, Nathan Lane, Amy Ryan, Stephen McKinley Henderson, Parker Posey. The DOP was Powell Pogorzelski.
Powell Poggers, as he's known in the industry. Powell Poggers.
Yeah, exactly. It was a whopping runtime of 2 hours and 59 minutes. Maybe we're continuing the long movie trend of last year. Oh, and then budget was $35 million.
That is facts, as they say, also in the industry. Now, we usually play this game. And this game is called Predacritic, and it's based off of a website on the internet called Metacritic, where critics' scores of a movie are tabulated out of 100, and if it's 60 or above, it's green. If it's 80 or above, it's labeled must see. If it's 60 to like 45 or something, it's yellow, and if it's below that, it's red. We are going to guess where Beau is Afraid landed in that metric. And unfortunately, I am going first, it seems.
This is honestly a tough one, and this is why I don't want to lose.
I'm actually somewhat comfortable with the range that I'm going to guess in.
Okay.
So, I think this one seems to be controversial. I think some people are going to hate this movie, and I think some people are going to like it. I don't think anyone's going to love this movie. So, I'm pretty comfortable guessing, I don't know, somewhere around, let's say, 63. That's where I'm going to land. Next up is Peter.
I get to go last.
I'll say 62.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm going through. I agree with you guys. I agree with your... that the 60s is exactly what I'm thinking. I think that some people will love this. I've actually already seen some reactions where some people are saying like this is Astor's best film.
Joaquin's best work too.
Like, as the only person who has seen Ari Aster's movies in the pod right now. You saw Midsommar. I don't know where I'd rank this right now, but I don't know. But the point is, like, I think a lot of critics hated this. So I think it's in the 60s. I think it might be above a 63, so I'll go 64.
That was a bad choice because that actually puts you in last place. Peter wins, guessing it on the mark, only because he piggybacked off of my guess, really. Yes, Beau is Afraid got a 62. I think that is a perfectly adequate mark. I think that.
Oh my god, Aiden, I feel so bad for you.
Damn.
The synopsis is not gonna be tough. It's not gonna be easy to do.
I actually would wager that not an incredible amount happens.
Not a lot happens in 3 hours. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Okay,
yeah, okay, I'll try it. But anyway, we do. I'm forgetting the order. We do non-spoiler reactions first, right?
Yeah, before we spoil the entire movie, we do our non-spoiler reaction.
Yeah.
So, Peter, because you won, I guess. You do get to start with your non-spoiler reaction, so take it away.
Okay. So before I get into it, I have to quick disclaimer. So I didn't really like the Joker. I didn't. Okay, and you'll see why I'm mentioning this in a bit.
Right. This is a great disclaimer. I actually like this now. Keep going.
So
I didn't like the
so
Joker
like
either. You got
so like
your
I don't think a lot of people say Joker's a bad movie, etc. Like I don't think necessarily it's a bad movie. It's just
I do.
it doesn't align with what I enjoy from movies. Like when movies like I think certain movies are designed and built in a way where it's supposed to make you feel a certain way, and sometimes when like these emotions just like it's just extremely down, depressing, or just like intense type of movies, I don't really get a lot of enjoyment out of them, and that impacts like my personal subjective score for the movie a lot. So I think Beau is Afraid, at least to me, is that type of movie. Like it's a movie where you're just thrust into a guy's life with like anxiety-ridden situations happening again and again and again, with no breaks, with just like well, except for like a certain scene in Act Two where we sort of caught a break there. But it's just endless anxiety-ridden situations in this guy's already very anxiety-heavy life. So, like already, like subjectively, I wouldn't enjoy that type of movie. And on top of that, the plot is actually layered in a way that's supposedly factoring in that type of uh, unreliable narrator energy, sort of you can't really trust everything you see. So like plot wise is also very confusing to me mid watch when I was watching it. So honestly, I don't think this movie is for everybody. I wouldn't recommend a lot of people to see it. I think it's an interesting movie to like if you're interested in cinema and like want to explore the different types of movie. This is definitely one that to see like a unique side of cinema. But I personally didn't like it, and I gave it I think 2.5 on Letterboxd. Not because I think it's a bad movie. I think creatively it's very unique, um, but it's just personal enjoyment wise. I didn't get anything out of the movie, so um, that's my review.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Yeah, okay, so as the second closest guesser to the score, I will deliver my non-spoiler reaction next. Beau was Afraid. Yeah, it's long. It's really long. And I'm usually a proponent of long movies. Like when people say like, oh, Avatar's 3 hours or oh, Babylon's 3 hours, like I'm like, okay, cool. If that's what the filmmaker wanted, like I'm usually very supportive of that. This is the other version of that where I think some restraint would have been appreciated. I think this movie is just kind of like it's subtext turned into text, really. It's just someone's therapeutic nightmare, and maybe someone enjoys that. Maybe that's what Ari Aster likes to watch, but personally, I was just getting like really tired of it pretty quick. I think it's kind of repetitive after a while, which is why, again, I think some restraint in the editing and like this could have been a 2 hour movie. I don't think a 3 hour Odyssey was what, like, I don't think the filmed material and the script supported a 3 hour runtime. I think there's a universe where you could have made a 3 hour version of this, but I don't think they did. I think it has its moments. I think there's some comedic parts to it. Not enough, if you ask me. It's definitely leading into like the nightmarish kind of surrealist drama. It's more of that than it is a comedy or a black comedy. But there were moments where I was laughing, and my audience it was bigger than I would have expected. It was a late showing on a Thursday, but it was very quiet. like so quiet that sometimes there's jokes, and I would like kind of like stifle my laughter because I was the only one making noise. And the movie itself is so quiet for like most of the runtime. That was brutal. Anyways, yeah, I just like really didn't care for this. I find the archetype of like unreliable narrator and like impotent protagonist are just kind of like exhausting to be with, especially after 3 hours, where it's just Beau being like he's not really doing a lot. Um, and the whole like, is this real? Is this really happening? Kind of question that is like the whole foundation of the unreliable narrator archetype. I just find completely uninteresting because like clearly the filmmaker is trying to throw you off, and there is probably no real answer. So I find those kind of questions futile. Anyways, yeah. So I didn't really enjoy this, but not like the worst thing I've seen. I think, Ari Aster made like a competent movie otherwise, if that makes any sense. Like I think he directed it decently, like well-ish. So better than some other stuff. So I don't know. I would give this maybe a 2.5 or probably not a 3 just based on enjoyment. But yeah, no, I don't think I would recommend people go see this because if I didn't like it, I don't know who is. Aiden, you get to go next.
Yeah, I'm coming in from an interesting position here. I'm coming in as someone who's seen both Hereditary and Midsummer and did not like either movie. And so I was going to this movie like quite frankly with hater energy, being like I'm not going to like this. And yeah, lo and behold, I kind of have the same lukewarm reaction where this is like a 2.5 star movie for me. I think that it does some interesting things, but I also think that like it's we'll get into this, but I think it is repetitive, and I think it's also a repetition of things that Ari Aster has already done, and I would say in a more interesting way in other movies. Even though they're movies I don't like, I think he's kind of done these things better in other movies. I will say there are a few things I disagree with what you said. Like, you guys keep saying unreliable narrator, and I don't know if that's entirely accurate. Like, Joker is trying to do the unreliable narrator thing, and it's stupid there. Like, and it's trying to get you to question: did what happen? Is this real? I don't think this movie is doing that. I don't think it's asking you to question whether or not things are real. I think this is a surrealist reality. It's based off this person's subjective experience. This is what you're taking in. I personally found that at no point is the film begging you to be like, wait, did that actually happen? I don't think that's a part of the movie. So that was actually something I enjoyed about it, was the representation of subjective reality, although overbearing, repetitive, and not necessarily as layered as I think it needs to be, or as Ari Aster thought it was, I guess. I also disagree that there's not subtext in this movie. One compliment I will pay this movie as well is that I think you could go back to this movie 2 or 3 times and pick something new out each time. But I'm frankly not interested enough in it to do that, just based off what I've seen. What I have gleaned from this movie, I don't think is super compelling. I think that this movie does waste a lot of time. I think I completely agree. It's not 3 hours. It should have been cleaned up in the edit. We'll get into that. Yeah, I gave this 2.5 stars, and I think some people would love this. That's the other thing I disagree with. Like, there are people we know, Alex, that I think will see this and will love it. But whatever. So I personally don't recommend this, but
who do you think? Like, just about their name. Maybe.
Yes.
I don't know.
He would.
You think? Okay.
I think he would, yeah.
Well, if you're out there, go check it out. Sorry, were you continuing your? Let him
no,
finish.
That's it.
Are you done?
That's it.
You're done?
Yeah.
Done.
Yo, before we move on to the spoiler part, I want to touch on the unreliable narrator part. I think it's more about how like surreal the reality is. Like, you think this is an unreliable narrator. Like, that's my experience going into it. I was like this is no way this is happening, right? And then sort of partway through the movie, you like I think that point is you can't tell because everything is so crazy. You can't tell what is actually happening and what is not, because it gives you a sense that it might be happening, like it might be set in our world, but then as the movie progresses, you sort of question that more and more. I think that is the unreliable narrator point that I want to get across.
Yeah, just like it might be a misnomer, like it's not technically an unreliable narrator, like it's more the surrealist thing. But for example, when his this is really a spoiler, when his keys go missing and his mom over the phone is like, "Did you really lose your keys?" I'm like, I don't care,
But again, I think we're reading that moment very differently. I saw that completely as just a character moment of his mom doesn't trust him, and his
Yeah,
mom
agreed.
thinks that he
I
doesn't
think I
want to
see
come
it
in.
the same way.
I did not see that as the filmmakers asking us, did that actually happen?
I think it's the kind of thing that video essays on YouTube will like do deep dives on, like what really happened in this movie, though. You
But
know,
I hate
like,
that's like that's them. Like that's not the movie.
sure,
doing
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. But anyways, whatever. We have a spoiler warning now.
Pew, 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 pew.
So Aiden, as the unfortunate
shite,
loser
yeah.
of the game, you have to tell us what happened in this movie in
Sure.
2 minutes, which is probably what this movie should have done too. Whoa, roasted. Are you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, here you go. 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Okay, so we open in a therapist appointment where we're introduced to the idea like Beau has a mom and she's kind of mean. So Beau goes home and he's supposed to visit his mom, but he sleeps in because his neighbor. There's a whole thing with his neighbor. It doesn't really matter. But he loses his keys and he loses his luggage, and so he isn't able to go. He calls his mom, and mom is like, "Fuck you." Calls mom later. Once again, turns out she is. A UPS guy answers the phone, and the mom has allegedly died by getting decapitated. So Beau, oh fuck, how does he get to the next place? What happens? Oh shit!
He gets naked. He's
He
in
gets
a
naked.
tub.
Oh, yes. There's a whole thing with like a bathtub. There's a guy in his apartment. He gets naked. He runs out of his apartment. He gets hit by a car, and then he's taken in by this surgeon and his wife. He's in their house for like 30, 40 minutes, or at least that's what it feels like. And he just kind of hang out. The daughter's kind of mean. The daughter drinks paint and dies. There's also a military guy that chases him out once the daughter dies because the mom has turned on him. He goes into the woods where he finds this theater company who are like all orphans or something, and they do this play, and there's this other extended sequence where it kind of goes through this plot that loosely resembles what we've seen in the movie, but also things that haven't happened. And then Beau's like, oh, what? Then Beau thinks he sees his dad, and then his dad gets blown up. And then the military guy comes out, and then he shoots himself in the shoulder. Beau runs away. Beau makes it to his parents' house, to his mom's house, to the funeral. He missed the funeral. Turns out he has sex with his childhood crush and kills her in the process by shooting through the condom. And then turns out mom is alive. And he goes to this attic. There's a penis in the attic. It's his dad. He finally kills his mom, but then he gets on a boat to escape. Turns out he doesn't escape. He's in this big coliseum where he's on trial for like whether or not he loved his mom, and then he dies at the end.
Very nice. That is a pretty good summary of what happened. I don't really have any objections. You basically nailed it. Peter?
Cool.
Happy with it? Okay. Well, we can get into it now. We have our full discussion. So, did you guys have a favorite part? I do.
I do too.
Okay,
Actually,
so let's hear it.
I actually quite enjoy the theater thing, the whole like the
Interesting.
play. That was the first part of that movie where I was like, okay, I kind of like this. Up until that point, I was like really like, come on, like let's just like do something interesting. Like come on. But yeah, I actually thought it was really interesting that, you know, it starts off as this story that's like, okay, that isn't what we've seen. Like, we haven't seen him go off and find a village, and it's his village, and he gets a family. But then there are details that do relate. I liked that it, like, interwove, and I liked that it, like, kind of flipped time on its head, too. Like, certain events within the play happen in a different order than we've actually seen them happen. And, like, to me, it's one of the most engaging parts of the movie because I don't really know what it means. And, like, that's something that I would have to, like, think about. Like, that's something I'd go back to the movie to look at for. Whereas other parts, it's like, even if I don't know exactly what he's getting at, I feel like I have a vague sense and it's not as interesting to me. So that was like definitely, and I was also just happy to get out of the surgeon's house because I was very sick of that by that point.
No, I
Yeah.
agree. Like the play definitely, like I think to me as well. The play is like the first time where the plot structurally made sense. It's like one coherent thing within the play, and then the art style, the narration's all done very nicely, and then the final product of the play, you know, with the little sort of animated cartoonish background and Beau walking through it is also really pretty. And then the way the play sort of gave like a fantasized version of Beau's life, what Beau's life could have been maybe. It's like, what if like he has, And then I really love like at the end they sort of question the both sort of questions like, but I can't have kids. Like you know, I was told that if I, you know, have sex with a woman, I would die. You know, so like that sort of, and that is where we sort of pull back into reality. I really like how we got into the play and how we got out of the play. Like that entire sequence is beautifully done, in my opinion. So I agree.
Yeah, it's a very visually striking sequence. I like that they do like a combination of art styles. Like there was claymation in there. There was like hand
There's
drawn
hand-drawn
or,
animation, yeah.
like crayon. Like it was all over the place. It was really neat. I do think like yeah, I think what Peter said is right. I think it's like the life he could have led, but kind of like not a real life. It's very it's almost biblical, like with the flood and all that.
Yeah.
And it's like it's I think the idea is like it's just a more interesting life he could have led as opposed to the very safe, very boring life he actually leads. So it's like this fantastical like what if scenario. What if he did have these kids? And yeah, I mean the only thing I took issue with that in that sequence is it like everything else, it goes on forever. And I'm like, okay.
It is long.
So
Yeah, and then I'll also actually add on that. I think, yeah, it's a life. What's interesting is that it's like a life he could have if he was someone who could make a choice, who could set off on his own. If he went off and he broke the chain that was holding him back, which is like his mom, this is the life that he could potentially have. And I think what's interesting is that even in this thing that he's fantasizing, because I think this is a moment where it's like, okay, he's kind of fantasizing. Like this isn't happening because it's like he's watching it play and this is what he sees. But and I think it's interesting that even in his even in this fantasy, like things still go completely wrong, and like his fears still wind up being realized. Like it's still a story that spirals out of control and leaves him ultimately unsatisfied, which I think speaks to like how this character really has like no grip on how to live a life, and like he kind of has no hope in going forward because he's just not equipped to deal with anything. And so I think like, yeah, to me this is one of the most interesting parts of the movie, and even though it is long, this is one of the segments that I was fine with going on longer. There are other parts where I was like, oh my god, but this part I was fine with.
Yeah, I'm curious about how your takes on the, like, you know how like it started with, you know, you have land, you made a living off the land, you have family, etc. And then up until the separation point, like where the flood happens and then he's separated with his family and then he goes on this quest to find his family again. How do you guys interpret that quest? Like what does that mean? How does it relate to Beau's current life? Like is this...
Yeah, that's I think two things pop into my head. One, it reflects the journey he's currently going on in the rest of the movie. Like he's on a quest to go to his mom's funeral. So like I think there is that kind of like quest mirroring. And maybe the other thing is like it provides a reason for like it matches his current circumstance of having no family, but instead of him just having no family, it's no, my family is out there. I just have to find them. They exist.
It gives him a purpose which he doesn't have. It gives purpose to the same situation he's already in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's just something that's off the cuff, but yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's interesting. Yeah, I agree.
Anything else we want to discuss about this sequence?
No, that's pretty much it for me.
Like
what are your favorite parts? Because that is the most standout thing for me. Almost everything else, it's the thing that I just liked, had the most net positive reaction to, whereas almost everything else was either a mixed bag or a net negative.
Yeah. Peter, what was your favorite part?
I have like small sequences that I really enjoy.
Sure.
So
Okay, start with one and we'll...
Yeah, I know you
Straight up.
hated the surgeon house, Aiden, but I'm gonna start with the surgeon house. So there is.
I didn't hate it. There are things I like about it, but yeah.
It's long.
You said it was too
like
long.
everything
Though.
else.
You
It
wanted
is
to get
too
out
long.
of there. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this one sequence I really enjoy where the lady of the house, what's her name? I forgot.
The
Amy
lady of the
Ryan's
house,
character.
are we in,
I forget
like-
her name.
We're in Game of Thrones. The lady in the house.
Hey,
But Amy Ryan's character, yeah.
yeah, so Amy's character, there's this one sequence where Beau just like, I think he got drugged the previous night. He just woke up. He's on the couch, and then she reached out to him. It's like, hey, this is the TV remote. Watch some TV. Go to channel blah blah blah. And then
Go to channel 78.
so he went on channel 78, and then he's able to flash forward or like go back, and that actually represents like future scenarios that the movie will actually get into. It's actually really cool to see, like, we get a glimpse of where the movie is going, but then we have no context of how he's going to get there. So it's like, oh, he's on a boat. Oh, he's like sitting in this really luxurious house. Like, what is going to happen? I know it might be kind of cheap because, like, definitely other movies have done it, but I just really appreciate it. It's like we get a glimpse of the future without knowing what it actually means, and then able to connect back to this moment once we see these future scenes on the screen. But
No,
Aiden,
my point.
you wanna
My
say
point is not disagreeing with you. It's that at this point in the movie, I was very bored and wanted to and had to go to the bathroom, and so I got up and went to the bathroom both to pee and check the time. And much to my dismay, this was only like an hour in, and I was like, "There's no way this is only an hour in." But yeah, I missed that. I actually didn't see that at all. I did see the TV thing is what I completely missed that.
Yeah, it's very like, it reminds me of Truman Show. Basically, it turns out like there's cameras in the house, and it's been recording him, I guess, the whole time is the implication.
Yeah.
But also like nothing comes of it. Like it's a very one and done, because you miss that scene and then nothing happens. Right?
Yeah.
Like there was no like, oh, I'm missing some context here because it doesn't apply, the fact that he's been watched.
Well, it ties into the end.
To the trial?
The trial?
No, right before. This is actually about a different point I have. That this is the same ending point, but we can.
Do you want to? Yeah, let's.
Let's finish favorite parts though.
Yeah. I don't think that was a favorite part for me. Definitely, it was like I understand what you're doing. Okay, you're skipping, because he skips forward quite a bit, and it's like you see flashes of moments, and it's like I'm like, okay, that's the end of the movie. Sure. Okay, whatever. One of my favorite parts was a little cameo. Did you guys catch the cameo?
Is it Bill Hader as the UPS
Bill Hader.
guy? When that happened, I was like, is that fucking Bill Hader?
He's the UPS guy who calls Beau to tell him his mom died, and it's mostly over the phone. And I think I didn't clock it, but I was like, that voice sounds so familiar. And then there's one shot of him.
Yeah.
Was it on like the TV or something?
It's on the news, and his back
it's
is
on the
turned to the
news.
camera.
It's so funny because you can't see his face. Like you see like a sliver, and it was enough where I was like, "That's Bill Hader."
That's crazy.
Great moment. That was one of my favorite moments of this entire movie.
That was funny. Oh, I do actually want to say one of my favorite shots in the entire movie is in the surgeon house sequence, and it's a shot that is high angle with the dad on the left side of frame, Beau in bed with the mom like by his bedside. And so it's like the dad is like standing there in a very like dad pose, like watching over them. And I thought it was a super expressive shot, like showcasing this like family unit and how infantilized Beau is, and how like I almost saw it like representative of like a situation he's very familiar with like a dad who is kind of always lurking because he thinks about his dad, but like isn't really there and present with him, whereas the mom is like the one like kind of over caring. I thought it was a great shot, and it holds on it for a while, and I was like, this is great. It was one of the few times where we're holding on a shot, and I was like, yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Is this
nice.
when he just woke up in the daughter's
It's
bed?
right near the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember. I think I'm thinking of a different shot. I remember a high angle shot of the room, but I think it was just him. I don't remember the one where the family, the parents are also in it.
It's the first time we see the surgeon. It's in that scene.
Okay, cool. I don't know, Peter. Did you have any other favorite parts you wanted to get
I
to?
have more favorites. Just
Okay.
like small snippets, really. So I thought it was really cool at the very end of the movie when the bow flips and then we see the people on the stand start leaving. It's like exact mirror of my theater, like, and what's
Yeah.
happening in
Yeah,
the theater
yeah.
itself. People start leaving. I was like, yo, this is not it, right? Because they're still holding on the shot with the boats, upside down, etc. I was like, something's gonna happen. And then so like I was like the one of the few people that stayed throughout the credits, and then until the
You
very
did.
end when like the actual credits started rolling, like, come on, man, is that it?
Yeah. I stayed
but
for the entire. I agree
I
that
thought
that
it
was a
was
cool
cool.
moment
Yeah,
too,
that was
where
cool.
it actually there was something kind of freaky about like as they're moving out, and then you see people in your theater getting out as well.
Yeah.
Like
It's-
that was actually a cool moment.
I didn't think about that in a meta way. That is cool. Yeah. But for me, it was more like, at this point, I was so done with this movie that I was begging for it to be over. And then I saw that nothing's changing. Everyone's left the image on the screen. And I was like, okay, I gotta check. So I check on Google, and then it's like, yeah, nothing changes after that point. I was like, oh,
Credits.
okay, then I'm not staying. So, yeah, it wasn't for me, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and
you
when
have
it comes to
another one?
comedy, though, like the one moment where I genuinely laughed out loud was when he was calling his mom after the incident. So he called, and the UPS guy picked up. It's like, oh, it must be the wrong number, blah blah blah. It was still very intense.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
just like, oh,
yeah.
did his mom die? Was it? And then he called number again. UPS was like, I'm so sorry. Just
Yeah, I thought that was
delivery
funny,
of that
too.
line cracked me up. That was
Yeah.
hilarious.
While
That
while
was
we're in that,
genuinely funny.
we
Yeah.
might as well get into funny stuff now too. Where it's just
Sure,
like, what
sure.
are like this is a comedy. Like, what are the moments that you genuinely thought were funny? And I'll say one of the funniest moments to me was just an insert, and it was of the food he's eating, and it's like the best of Ireland and Hawaii.
And Hawaii.
And I thought that was hilarious.
was
And
quite
that, I
funny.
actually laughed out loud for that. There are a few others too, but I'm kind of blanking on them. What about you guys?
Yeah, for me, like, comedy was really strange in this movie because I think nobody knew if they should be laughing or not, and there wasn't a whole lot of people there. And Peter's giving me a thumbs up, indicating that he too felt this experience separately. But it was very awkward, just a very quiet theater. And I think the volume of the movie wasn't loud enough. This is a problem I have with theaters generally, but one moment that I found hysterical was okay, so this was a moment that I found funny, and then because it was so quiet, I was stifling my laughter, and it gave me like intense deja vu to when I watched Avatar under the influence, and like high as fuck, and it was just like the weirdest thing because I was stone cold sober, but because I was like trying not to laugh but laughing, like that made it funnier. And so
Yeah.
it's like when you get like the giggles or whatever, you know. And the moment was when we're looking at Mona, Beau's mom, and she's explaining how his father died, and it's like very dark, and it's like lights are changing across her face, red,
Oh, yeah.
green, blue, and she's just
Yeah.
explaining how he like came into her, I guess,
Yeah.
and then died, and I was finding that so funny, and no one else was laughing. It was that was most of the
I-
movie. It was very awkward.
I was
have
actually in a
comments on that.
lively theater. My theater was laughing constantly, and I was
Same,
actually
same,
I had the inverse thing where I was just there like, oh, that's not that funny.
Right? I didn't find
Yeah.
most things that funny. I agree. And honestly, like one thing I gotta say about this movie is, like, I was so tense throughout the whole movie. It was just like, if this moment was out of context, I'll probably find it really funny. But because of like what's happening in this movie, like I find it difficult to like break out that the tense atmosphere and laugh. And people around me were laughing. I was just like, yo, like I want to make sure this guy's okay. And I couldn't laugh for a lot of it. So
Could you guys think of any other specific funny moments?
there was
I
one
know-
that I
Yeah.
found like funny afterwards, but I didn't laugh in the theater. I was on the edge, on the precipice of laughing, but I didn't
Precipice of
actually laugh. But it was
Did you
when
like it?
it was when I think Roger, no, not Roger, like the army guy was going crazy in the house,
Yeah.
and then both the wife and the husband were like, no, 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 he still loves you, and then while stabbing, while trying to sedate him with the needles. I thought that was pretty funny, but I only found it funny afterwards. Like in the moment, I was like, "Oh my god, this is so intense." Beau, are you okay?
Yeah, I liked the idea of like the wide shots when Beau is on the phone with somebody, and then just like the guys going crazy in the background, running around, and like going into the pool and stuff. Like I found that kind of like I was like, oh, that is funny, but like from an intellectual standpoint, it didn't make me laugh, which was unfortunate.
I had that same experience where I was like, okay, I get the joke there, and I think that this is executed pretty well. But something like, there's something about the general tone of this movie and Ari Aster in general. I feel this in all of his movies where it's like,
it's hard to laugh.
Where it's like he does something and I don't necessarily think it's bad, but just something about the way it's presented, something about the tone, just like stops me from getting there and actually like liking it.
I agree. I had a similar experience.
And I couldn't really put my finger on what that is, but I felt it immediately in this movie, where I was just like from the beginning of this movie, I was already kind of against it. But I do want to say, sorry, you go, Peter.
Sorry, is it connected? Like, I have a different point.
Mine is kind of jumping to a different point.
Yeah, okay, so
somebody go.
We've all seen Sorry to Bother You, right?
Yeah.
So you know how, like, in Sorry to Bother You, sorry, spoilers, in the third act, how,
have
like,
you
know...
Has Alex?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. So, like, in the third act, you know how, like, when they were in Armie Hammer's mansion, there was, like, a horseman reveal?
Yeah.
Like, I found that really bizarre and funny. Like, at first I was like, oh my god, it's actually horses. And then in this one, the huge penis in the attic, when that reveal, I was like, this is the weirdest fucking thing I've ever seen. Like, just similarly, like, really surreal creatures or, like, reveal. One... in Sorry to Bother You, I found really weird and wacky and funny, but in this one, it's just like, I'm just completely taken aback. This is so strange, you know? I only got the weird part, not the funny part.
So I have 2 points that are kind of in different directions, but just specifically responding to that, like, that was a moment where I kind of rolled my eyes, and it kind of, this ties into my point of, is this movie doing too much? And so this is a broader problem that I have across Ari Aster movies, where I feel this strongly about both Hereditary and Midsommar, that a lot of stuff just happens for shock value, and people don't recognize, people treat it like it's like an incredibly like deeper thing, and like there's more going on than just, we're going to try to put the wackiest thing we can in this movie. I felt that with both Hereditary and Midsommar. And I felt that with this movie a bit too, and I think the penis was an example of that. And then, but this movie in some ways I thought handled it better. So one of the examples of when he's first on the phone and we get the like fucking 10-minute phone call where we learn that the mom is dead. Oh my god, that was long. Holy shit. That is such a long phone call. But when we're having that phone call and it's revealed that like a chandelier fell and she got decapitated, I also like rolled my eyes at that moment, because I was like, really? Like she had to die in like this completely brutal way. But then I was thinking about it more, and I was like, okay, well, it's an astronomically uncommon thing that could happen, right? Like it's almost, this would never happen. And so it's almost like the mom is doing this on purpose because she knows that it's a realization of Beau's like worst and most hysterical like anxieties and fears like come to life. Like Beau is someone who constantly worries about things that have an astronomically low chance of happening. So by her dying in that way, it's like a specifically tailored way of getting at him. But I still felt that throughout the movie, I was like, this is just, you're doing this just to be wacky. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think the chandelier thing, I kind of, like, there was parts of that I found funny. First of all being when Bill Hader's describing over the phone, like this thing that has happened, and it's astronomically, like, improbable, but also, like, man, there's, like, her whole face is gone, like, she has no head. Like, just kind of, like, the worst possible scenario. She didn't just die. Her head was crushed. Is just kind of, like, that hyperbole is kind of funny to me. And then when they cut to it later, like, at the at her home, and there's the placard that says, "This is where the chandelier fell," and she
That was
died, and there's
funny.
like the
Yeah.
hole in the floor. I found that pretty funny. But the penis monster thing, I definitely did roll my eyes because this ties to my point that I do want to save just so we can get to Peter's first. But this like, okay, of course it's a giant penis. Like this whole movie is just so Freudian, and it's like, really, we're just gonna like we've gone so
Yeah.
far. Like now we're just doing giant penises.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
what?
like, okay, I get he has like repressed sexuality, so the giant penis has been tucked away in the attic. Like,
And it's really scary, you know.
and
Like,
yeah,
okay, you know. I will say though that before he shines the light on it, and you just see like the faint blob of something, that scared me a little bit. I don't like
Ari
faint.
Aster loves that.
I
He
don't like
loves doing
faint shapes in the darkness. That's something that'll freak me out. Let us get into Peter's question. So, Peter, you have a question for us.
Yes. What happened in this movie? I'm
Great
very
question.
interested in your takes on the plot, and I have my own take, but very interested in hearing what you guys think.
I don't think it's that deep. I think what happens is pretty like what's there is what happens.
I
but
agree.
I can take a shot at it. So, this is basically our synopsis, take two. But Beau is living in Crime City, and he's just like living with anxiety because he had an overbearing parent, and so he just kind of like lives in this world where like the worst things are happening. So everything is exaggerated. Everything is up to 11, to quote Spinal Tap. um, so like, yeah, basically worst things are happening at all possible moments. And then he's supposed to visit his mother, but because he has these like repressed feelings of anger and distaste for his mother, he doesn't want to go. And circumstances happen that mean he can't go, whether or not those were real events or orchestrated by himself, in this kind of like surreal version, is who's to say. But he decides that he can't go, is ultimately what happens. Things happen, and he says, "Oh, I can't go see my mom because X, Y, Z." And she, because she wants to see him, she creates this like reason where he would have to come see her. So she stages her own death, assuming you believe that she is still alive, and I think that tracks. So she stages her own death so that there's a reason why he has to go home. But even that isn't enough. So he, gets in a car accident, which probably happens. But then he's just like so reluctant to go to that house that everything is taking so much longer than it should. He's getting sidetracked. He's like just kind of like accepting like reasons not to go, or like, yeah, just diversions and stuff like that, because he just like does not want to go see his mom, and also probably doesn't want to like admit that she's dead, which is like another one of those Freudian things. Like, you don't want to lose your mom. It's the anxiety of separation from your mother. So yeah, so he's stuck with the surgeon for a while, and then he escapes, and then he's in the forest. I would just take all of those things as like that happened. I wouldn't like say like,
Yeah.
I don't know, this is a dream. Like, no, I think just in this surreal world, yeah, sure, that happened. It's only like when he gets to the stage play and he envisions this world, like that is a dream. That is very clearly a dream sequence. And then it cuts back. He's still at the play, and then he hitchhikes. Finally, gets to his mom's place. Again, this is like surreal. So like a lot of like weird things happen, but those are what happens. So the girl he had a crush on from like a cruise, I guess, ages ago, does work for his mom, does show up, he does have sex with her, and she does die. And then he kills his mom because she's yelling at him. And also at some point, I think his name is Jeeves, the army guy, dies from the penis monster. Like, literally, like,
Yeah.
what happens
Yeah.
happens. I'm just describing what happens again, so I'll stop. But, Aiden, any
Yeah,
counter
I
ideas?
no, I agree with what you're saying, but there are just a few things and then I think towards the end it's like, okay, he's killed his mom, and so theoretically he can now actually set out on his own. His mom is this oppressive force in his life that keeps him chained, and so now he can set off on his own. This is represented by he takes a boat out to sea, right? Like he goes into a creek and now it's an ocean, but turns out he can't, and I take that as because like again like he is just not equipped for this at all. Like it's almost like it's too late. Like it's too late for Beau to take action and do anything. And like the mom is like set her claws in so much. And I also think that it's like because his sense of worth is based off of his mom, like his guilt is taken over, and so it's like he can't move forward because he has to like prove he loved her. Like the moment he kills her, it's like, oh, I didn't love her. Everything is my fault. He's been taught that everything is his fault by his mother. We see that in flashbacks, and so I think that's the whole trial thing at the end. And then I also want to add in that like everything was orchestrated by the mom. I don't know if you guys noticed this. The surgeon is an employee of the mom. In the
Even the surgeon is. Okay.
Yes, in
Didn't
the
get that part.
pointillism picture of the mom that we see in the insert that reveals that Parker Posey. Well, it's not a reveal. We already knew this, but Parker Posey's character is an employee. A few pictures above and to the right is the surgeon.
That's
And so-
Wow.
He also
That's
and so
insane.
that ties into the camera thing. It ties into like the stop incriminating yourself note, and then also
Okay.
his therapist from the beginning works for the mom too. And
That
so
was clear. Yeah.
I'll let you go, Alex, but that ties into my same ending point, and we're at a point where I have to say it, but you go, Alex.
Sure. Yeah, I was just gonna add on, like, yeah, the trial at the end is like the manifestation of his guilt for killing his mom, but also just like everything he's ever done, and like some like core memories show up. So like when he's hiding from his mom, and I like that like he has like this defense attorney, like the really cheap ones, the 1-800
Yeah.
defense attorney, but is so quiet because it's his own voice of like defense is there, but then it's like killed because it's just not strong enough. His own, I guess, yeah, like self-worth and like belief in himself just is not developed enough because the voice of his mother has always been stronger. And the like the voice of his mother is represented in his own mind by her attorney, Richard Kind, and like that is technically like himself arguing on behalf of his mother. It's like his two like
Yeah.
devil angel on a shoulder type thing, and just like he just kind of like dies because he just feels ridden with guilt for everything he's ever done, and I mean especially killing his mom. But yeah,
Yeah.
I will say also like the scene when he's just killed his mom and it's a wide shot and he's walking away from the house before he goes to the boat. Like Joaquin Phoenix has like the funniest face. He's just like like
Yeah.
wide-eyed, just kind of like frozen, but like in a really goofy way. I find that pretty funny.
Okay.
So
I have two particular points I want to ask you guys about. So
go for it.
one of them is, so like my interpretation of the movie, for at least like before we got to the play, is really like it's a montage of the worst possible scenario. You know, you left your door open, you left the key at the door, you lost the luggage, and you lost the key. You know, your apartment, you can't lock your apartment because you know you lost the keys, and then bunch of homeless people or like random guys rush into our apartment and trash the place. Like it seemed like at least with the beginning of the movie, it's really just montage of what the worst possible thing can happen in that scenario, one after another. And like I thought that was what the movie is about. It's like just showcasing this guy's life. If it's everything in his life, it's just, you know, anxiety is the worst possible scenario, and also sort of praise on his anxiety. Like what are you guys' take on the sort of crazy surreal sequences at the beginning? Where
Yeah.
like, you know, there's people getting stabbed on the street, you know, there's like people with guns, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote this in our notes too, is that like his mom was incredibly oppressive and coercive as a kid. And so his experience of reality is that everything is oppressive and coercive. Like I think that like, you know, even before we see all the guns and people, like he walks by and there's like an AR-15 like booth or whatever just on the sidewalk. And I think it's like it's this idea of like everything makes him so anxious and so afraid that it's like what Alex said, like everything's turned up to 11 because he's constantly in fear of the worst thing that could happen, and so he just lives in fear.
Yeah, and I think the best example of that that's like actually like super realistic is when after he's lost his keys and he needs to get the water and he's panicking. Like first of all, he's panicking like, oh my god, what happens if I don't take it with water? You have to take it with water.
Yeah.
Like that's an example of like heightened reality because like first of all, I don't think there's medication where it's like that desperate. But then the water's shut off. Then he has to go across the street, but he has no keys. And he's like, oh my god, I need to get water. And he's like super panicked. And then he decides to prop the door open with a book. And this is the part that I think is so great. Like, he knows he shouldn't do it, but he kind of has to. And then he's like in the shop and he keeps looking back and everyone in the street is entering the building because that's what anxiety does. And so I think that was actually like a really good manifestation of that internal struggle. So that's an example of like, good job, Ari Aster. You did something right in this movie.
I love the way that moment builds, actually, how it's like a couple people are kind of walking in and then we see a few more and then like it's like this comically large crowd. And that movie reminded me, I've actually only seen like 30 minutes of the movie, but it reminded me of the movie Mother, like that specific
Yes,
scene.
yeah. I remember.
But I've only seen part of that movie.
Like, do you guys think like this is manifestation, like just mentally his mental condition is making it worse, or did this actually happen and it's
I don't think it matters.
Prove
yeah, this is a surrealist world where the things that are happening are technically happening because they also drive the plot, so they couldn't have not happened. But the reason why it's a surreal world is because of his anxiety.
Yeah.
And his perception of the world is the world we see. So I just take everything at face value, like, yes, this happened, because if it didn't, like, there's no story, you know? So, yeah. Does that kind of
I see it the same way.
Peter?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I have two more small points. One is
okay.
on the teenage daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Why does she drink paint? She sort of explained it in a way that's like, no one cares about me. They'd rather adopt you than care about me. So is it just like a neglected child in a family that can't move on from trauma? Like,
I think it ties into like a lot of this movie. And this is another point I have. Like it's about like the things that like what growing up does to you and like how your parents treat you and how that like affects you as you go forward. And I think it's just another reflection of like Beau felt like overbeared by his mother, and she feels like underbeared.
She's underbeared.
she's underbeared by her mother, by her parents. And I think it's just showing another side of that. Alex, what are you gonna?
No, I was gonna say the exact same thing. She's the inverse of Beau, which is why them coming at odds is really interesting. He kind of fills the same role that her brother had before he passed away. Clearly, he was the favorite child, and hard to say if he was being overbeared, but Beau is, even when he arrives to this family, right? Like Aiden said earlier, like the mom is coddling him, and then the sister is Tony is like hates that, and she's the complete opposite. She acts out. She like tries to get him to do like drugs and stuff like that because she never received any of that attention or that love. So she's always doing these things for attention, right? So she's like, I'm gonna paint the walls of this room that they treasure so much, so that they like even get mad at me. And then she decides like for attention she's gonna kill herself.
She wants attention, whereas Beau wants to shrink into the back. Like they're like
She challenges him in a way, because she's the opposite.
That makes sense. Okay,
one
last little point.
Here you go. Okay.
When we're in the mom's house, Beau walks down to the basement, and we see the sort of like, I guess like the accomplishment of the mother throughout the years, and we learned that, like you said, Aiden, the microwave the microwave food he eats is from his mom's company. The condo he lives in is from his mom's company. Like, is there some significance there, or is it just more of the it's like everything in his life is touched by his mother type of thing?
Basically, like it's just like
Okay.
his mother has always been providing for him, and she's still providing for him. She's providing the food, she's providing the shelter. I also think it's funny that like what the idea that I get is that she has some amount of anxiety, and then she passes it on to Beau, and her anxiety is really clearly
It's hereditary.
reflected. It's no, it's reflected in the products her company makes. It's like all of like the allergy relief stuff. It's like the products are called like perfectly safe.
Yeah, security, huge emphasis on
Security,
security.
stuff like that. So, yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting, like to show like she's anxious as well, and
Yeah.
it's definitely reflected in different ways. But
Yeah, and I think like what another interesting part is when the mom says she talks about how her mother showed her no love, and so she tried to like do the opposite with Beau, or she tried to like really be overbearing and like love him to up to 11 again, but because of the way she grew up, she doesn't know how to do that. And so like she doesn't know how to love, and she doesn't know how to accept love from Beau either, so it's always this like transactional coercive thing. And like I think that's an interesting idea of like how like anxieties are passed down. And to get into a point, this is largely what Hereditary is about, this point of like things that you can't escape, how like trauma is passed down, how like inabilities to deal with different things are passed down. Like that's like a big part of Hereditary, and that among many other things is some of the similarities that I saw between Hereditary and this, and that's why I was calling this Hereditary 2. So like there's also decapitation as a theme, which is a big theme in Hereditary as well. There's also the fact that so I'll get into this now, where in every single Ari Aster movie, the characters are trying to escape this external oppressive force that is in the end revealed to be so all-encompassing and have their paws in everything and power everywhere, to the point where the main characters can't do anything, and they never really had a chance to do anything. That is how literally every Ari Aster movie ends. And it like actually like when I saw that the surgeon was one of the employees, I was also like, I audibly went like, no fucking way. Like, no way. And then when the therapist came out as well, I was like, oh my God. Because like at the end of both, okay, spoiler for Hereditary. So, okay, it's pew pew spoiler for Hereditary.
I'm more curious how this relates to Midsummer, because I know a little more about Midsummer than Hereditary.
At the end of both movies, I was like, oh, okay, it's like a cult. And like that's less hidden in Midsummer. Like it's pretty clear that that's what's going on the entire time in Midsummer. But like again, like the ending is just like the characters have no power. They either have to die or assimilate into whatever the oppressive, horrible force is. Like that happens in every single one of his movies. Like, and they have to like sublimate themselves, and they can't exist at the same time as this thing, and they're weak in comparison to all of the auxiliary forces in their lives. And I just thought I thought that was really frustrating how they did it again.
Can you explain this in the context of Midsummer? Because I thought like
in Midsummer,
yeah.
It's like a breakup movie that
Yes.
from the beginning they have been pining after Danny. They specifically want Danny to come onto the trip. They want Danny there. They are grooming her to become the May Queen without her realizing it. And so they take advantage of the fact that she recently broke up with her boyfriend and is and her family died, so she's yearning for a new family. They take advantage of that and induct her into their family without her knowing it. And by the end of it, she has no choice but to accept it, because she's cut off from everything that isn't like this. And so it's like she assimilates into the thing. And like it's just like, come on, like this like, come on, dude. Like I actually got really frustrated with this in the theater, how it was like this is the same thing, brother.
So why did Beau die at the end then? Because technically that external force is gone, right? Because he killed him.
No, because he can't escape it. He can't escape
Oh,
how
that makes
how
sense.
ingrained his mom's influence is into him. And like you said, like again, his sense of self-worth is so dependent on how much worth his mom would allot him. And so like with mom gone, he doesn't know what to do. He feels overwhelming guilt and he's literally stuck in the mud. Like his feet are fused to the bone, he can't move. And that's how he dies. He's stuck in indecision because he doesn't know how to make decisions. And the oppressive force wins. That's like
that's exactly Midsummer. She's stuck in the chair. The
Yeah.
oppressive force have covered her in flowers, and they've won. I'm starting to see it. I haven't seen Hereditary, so I can't. I don't have.
When you watch Hereditary, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I can talk about though what I see this movie as, there might be connections to the Ari Aster thing, but at some point during the movie I was like, oh, this is Freud's version of the 50-year-old virgin. It's the 40-year-old virgin, Steve Carell's, but Joaquin Phoenix is a little bit older, I think. I actually don't know how old he is. That was a guess. I have a book about anxiety, and I've got like maybe I'm nowhere near the end. Like I read that so slowly, but like I feel like Ari Aster just adapted that book, like of just like medical terminology and like musings. That's like basic, like more thesis than anything else, and he just made that into a movie. Like it's really just like this movie is basically a description of what anxiety is, and like its most like Freudian version, which is the like very overbearing mother, like to a surrealist extent, so she's like really actually in control of everything. And then, the idea of like, there's this thing like I just started reading it again, and there was a part that's like the fear, the most primal anxiety is the loss of the mother, because as an infant you need the mother to survive, and so that's where that stems from. And it's clear like that's a big part of it. And then it's like the whole Oedipus complex is kind of in here, where he doesn't like explicitly want to fuck his mom, but he's fucking the girl and his mom is there. And then there's the whole idea that he won't have sex with anyone because his mom told him not to. Like it's just like there's like that's all this movie is description of like an outdated too idea of what this mental illness is. And it's really frustrating because there's not a lot other than that in this movie. It's just a thesis, basically.
I do disagree with that.
Wait, sorry. Before we move on to your point,
questions.
Alex, do you mind explaining the whole theory of Freudian?
Freud.
Freud. What is he preaching?
I mean, I kind of described it, but like this is like I barely know it, but
it's like everything stems from sexual repression that you develop as a child, right? Like it's right?
Freud thinks that like Freud is from like a century ago, so like his ideas are not the modern thinking, but his like I remember reading something like all male anxieties are relied to the fear of impotence, and like I think that's it. Or no, what's the word for losing your dick? Like that's what he says. Male anxieties are
castration.
Like, castration. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. It's the fear of castration is the main fear. He described there was a case where a boy was afraid of horses, and his explanation was the boy was afraid the horse was going to bite his dick off. And I was like, dude, like what the fuck? I haven't read the whole book, so maybe there's maybe he's right. I don't know, but like that's basically like his all of his ideas are trying to he tries to make like this interconnected theory where everything makes sense and it's all tied to moms and penises. And that's what this movie is, moms and penises. And so it's extremely Freudian in the sense like Beau is this character with anxiety, and it's because his mother is overbearing, and that has led to his sexual repression. And it's a lot. Does that kind of Cole's notes it for you?
That explains it.
Okay,
Aiden,
no,
your point?
Aiden disagrees a little bit.
I don't have much to say. I think there is more. I agree that the movie is doing a lot of that, but I just think there is more going on because there are too many things that don't quite nicely fit into that. Like, yeah.
Like?
Oh, like for example, like okay, so like why does, and I know that you could, like you might be able to fit in, but like why does Parker Posey die? Instead of like, so it's set up that like he's gonna die when he has sex and instead she dies. Like why does that happen? And a lot of the stuff in the play, like why does that specifically happen? Like there's too many specific details. Like the thing with his dad, and I get that it's still related to that, but I just think that the movie is doing a little bit more than you're giving it credit for.
Okay, like I mean, why Parker Posey dies? I don't know. It's easier. Like it allows the confrontation between just Beau and his mom. Like I think that's now we're just gonna tend into like what works best for the screenplay. So I don't, like I said, I haven't read this whole book, so I don't really know all of it. But I just mean like, yeah, I don't. I'm not saying that like there's Ari Aster did something to adapt it, right? Like it's not just the theory on the screen. Like whatever. This is like, you know.
Sure.
Aiden, doesn't it also play into the Freudian theory though? Because like it's an act of defiance towards his mother, and the act resulted in the consequence that he can't well, like it resulted in something bad, right? Is that why?
That is interesting too, and it's also like it's also interesting that it's not like self-focused, like it's about another person. But my point is not that it doesn't tie into what Alex was saying. I just think that there is a little more subtlety than that.
Maybe. I think what Peter's saying is right. Like I think it's that idea that he's been told that to have sex with someone is like the worst possible thing that could happen. And so when he realizes that sex does not actually result in his death, something else terrible has to happen, right? Because he doesn't actually die. So then his brain has to go, wait, is everything I know a lie? And it goes, no, it's not a lie. Something else terrible happens. She dies.
Sure.
And so that's the next worst consequence. And then his mom
But
is there and
even that is like what you're describing is a more nuanced adaptation of the idea.
Okay. Like I'm making a generalization here.
Yeah.
But like that is like that's just my, I don't know, oversimplified view of what this movie is, we can talk about I don't know.
Do you want to loop back to direction?
Sure. Let's do that. Aiden, do you want to what do you think?
So yeah, I was going to say this a while ago and I forgot about it, but there are definitely moments. I think there's good and bad directing here. There are things I like and don't like. I was gonna say when we were talking about the chaos in the street, there's a shot that, like, I think it's like trucking across the street, and we're seeing like, I don't know what Peter's doing, and we're
so
seeing
fascinated by the we have from Peter. What
But
is
anyway,
going on?
we're seeing all the chaos ensue on the street, but the way the shot is, it's like nothing is really the focal point of the shot, and the way the characters are moving doesn't really draw your eye, and it's also somewhat dark, so you can't quite see what they're doing anyway. And it's like there are a few moments like that where it's like, I get that in theory this shot is just to show like all the chaos of what's happening, but it's actually not really doing that.
Yeah, no, I do agree. That one was the chaos shot was a bit chaotic and not a lot of focus. I think a better version of that was the start. I actually did kind of like the shot where he's walking along like the shops. I think that was a good version where I really liked when the shopkeeper like tilts up the glass window to get the sculpture. You see the reflection of the person who's gonna jump off the building, and it directs your eye to that, and then we go to that thing, and then the the camera never tilts up. We're shown in different ways. So then someone's like recording it on their phone, and we see it on their phone instead of the camera. So I thought that was pretty creative. I guess other directing things, like I think we kind of mentioned this, but like there's some good wide shots, like or use of like depth. So like we'll be focusing on what's happening with Beau, but other things are happening in the background that were kind of interesting, slightly humorous, potentially, but.
I also say, like, within directing, like, I have a problem with... I felt like conversation scenes were almost always filmed in very similar ways. Like, there's so many scenes that play out, like... There are two different ones that I noticed where it's, like, an OTS full shot where, like, we hang on shot reverse of... It's over the shoulder, and the subject of it is completely full. We see, like, most of them, and it's just cut back and forth between that. And then also shots where they're clean singles, but they're like wides, and we see them like in the context of the house, or like they're through a doorway or something, and we're just flopping back and forth between that. And at a certain point, I was just like, I felt like a lot of things like could have been differentiated. I have a general problem of a lot of things feel the same in this movie, and it ties to my point of I feel like there are too many precious moments. Like there's too much of sameness and not knowing like which moments are more important, which ones are emphasized in this way, which ones don't need to be emphasized in that way. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that, like I said, like the movie needed to be edited down because just some moments play out forever, and they are not that important. Like the scene where he's been forced to get high. You get what's happening very quickly, and then they hold on it for like 2 minutes, and it's like that's most of the movie, like very slow digital zooms in on not important moments, or just like nothing is happening, but we're staying there, and it's like fucking relentless. And maybe that was the intent. Like it's a surrealist nightmare, and you can say like, oh, that was the artistic intent to make you feel like you're trapped and watching something that is taking forever. And I mean, if that was the goal, like you succeeded. But was that really like the question, I guess, then is, was that what this story needed? Was that does that best like push the story forward, I guess, and represent the story? And I don't really think so. Like I think it was just like, I don't think so either. It made me exhausted, really.
Yeah. And I think like especially in the beginning, there's tons of examples of that. There's like 3 slow push into character as Beau is talking about something. It's like holy fuck, like, and they're like not spaced out that much either. And it's just like, come on, like all of these moments are being treated as if they're the same level of importance, and there's no way that's true.
Yeah, and like the first act like goes on forever. Just I think everything just like get to the fucking point. So Beau is Afraid is just well, this is terrible. We're coming back from break. Beau's Afraid, I think, to summarize, is just like, I feel like Ari Aster is trying to say something that has been said in medical journals and like old ones at that, and there's not so like not a lot going on here that is new, maybe, but also doesn't do a great job of presenting the material either, due to some maybe overindulgence in particular everything. But so we loved it. It was great. But Aiden, I think we have a segment we do.
We sure do. So the movie, the podcast is called Predator versus Movies, or Beddator versus Movies. So we asked the question.
That joke hasn't been released yet. That's a joke from the future. They don't know what you're talking about.
Forget I said that.
You'll see, guys.
This is the podcast where we determine would the movie be better if the Predator from the movie Predator was in it. God. Be better. We asked the question, would this movie be better if the Predator from the movie Predator was in it? I would think maybe.
I think
Probably.
I have a very strong
Because,
opinion
like-
on this one. I
Yeah?
think absolutely there are so many scenes where just like background characters going crazy.
Yeah.
We can totally just have, like in the scene on the street, for example, the predator in the background is like walking around hunting folks.
It's the surrealist nightmare of someone with anxiety. It's so easy. You just have an anxiety about aliens, like
Yeah.
an alien hunting you, like it. And he
Instead of
works
that
for
random-
he works for the mom,
Yeah.
Like it all works.
That's
He's in
clever.
the little pictogram thing of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what did you call it? It has a name.
I called it a pointillism picture. That's what the
Pointillism?
technique is called.
Okay,
Right?
I don't know.
I think so.
didn't know
I
it
could
had
be
a
wrong.
name.
I thought that was called pointillism.
And
I've-
also,
I've seen him before, but
instead of just a random guy hanging on his ceiling, it's the predator.
oh, it's the predator. That would
Yeah.
be good.
when
that
he
would
was
be
going
good.
in the shower. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would also like drive the thing. I guess Jeeves fills that role at one point, but yeah. Good discussion on that. Peter, we have
Yep.
another segment.
We do. Predator's pigs.
Woo! Let's go.
What is it?
What
Oh,
is that,
right,
Peter?
right. I the one
Exciting.
explainer. Predator's pigs. What do you guys watch this past week?
Yeah. Why don't we start with me? I'll just go first. I don't
for
usually
it.
go first, anyways.
Go for it.
I watched the first 2 episodes of Barry. I think that was from this week. It seems like it. Barry season 4, that is. Great show. Still love it. It's like, man, the show keeps getting like harder to watch. It's because like it's just getting darker and darker. The first season is
Yeah.
a very clear cut comedy. Not to say that it isn't still funny. It is funny, but the shift in tone over 4 seasons is crazy. But I'm still loving it. Bill Hader has just shown himself to be like a fantastic director. So you guys,
Wait, he also directs. So he acts
yes, he
and
does.
directs.
Yes, he does. So
All
you guys
4
need,
seasons.
No, like it's like in most TV shows, like he switches like different directors for different episodes. So
Right.
he'll do a certain chunk. So he did the first 2 of this season. I don't know. I don't think
that's
he directs the
amazing.
whole thing. Let me check.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but anyways, everybody should go check that out. You guys need to check that out. You too.
I might. I'm still knee deep in The Wire, so once we'll see about that.
Okay, I just checked, and this season is rare in that it is entirely directed by Bill Hader, where
Oh, really?
every other season has been directed by a combination of people. But he definitely like last season he did, what is that, 6 out of 8? So like he was increasing the number he was directing over time. But like, man, the show is so good. I think this is new for this week. I watched The Exorcist.
Oh yeah.
I don't understand how people said this was the scariest film of all time, or that
Yeah.
people... Was this the one where people were like freaking out in the theaters, like screenings, and
Yeah.
they're like, how?
I've never
How
seen the whole
is that?
thing, but from what I've seen, I'm also confused by it. Where it's like, I don't feel like it's that scary.
It's not scary. It's
Yeah.
funny sometimes. Just like, because like the idea is like this little girl's possessed, and then she starts like cussing like a pirate
Yeah.
or like a Manitoban, and I'm just like, that is Tuesday. Like no, it's like I think it's maybe sensibilities. Like it was very like, I don't know, inappropriate stuff going on in that movie for the 70s, and so I guess that freaked people out. But it was like pretty good. It was a fine movie. There is a part of it where it's like this kind of has to happen for The Exorcist, like just what the plot is, but like the medical science has to fail so that they turn to exorcism. And for me, that's the kind of thing where I'm just like rolling my eyes, where they're like, the medical science isn't working, and like, I guess you could try exorcism, like maybe you just need faith in your life. And I'm like, oh my god, shut the fuck up. Again, for this movie to exist, that it's a necessity that you have to just accept that religious stuff happens, but that's just hard for me specifically. But yeah, like it was a all right film. I also watched as part of the Trash Cult screenings at the local Cinematheque. They were doing Slumber Party Massacre 1 and 2. Very different movies. The
From one
first one
another?
is, yeah, which is very strange. So the first one is like a straight up just like slasher, like guy breaks out of prison and is killing a bunch of teenage girls who are having a slumber party. Like very clear cut. That's what it is. The second one is like a direct sequel to that. One of the younger sisters in the first one grows up and is having a slumber party of her own, but instead of it being like a real killer, she's haunted by dreams of not even the same killer, but like a John Stamos slash John Travolta from Grease-esque rock and roll biker dude with a drill guitar. Like the drill is like the power drill is the weapon in the first movie, and then they decide to make it a power drill guitar. And she is haunted by visions of this guy, and then you know
awesome.
at the climactic point, like he kills everybody, and like this is barely a spoiler. That's just what the movie is, and it's just like really weird. I actually
Wait,
struggled.
so it's his visions? It's her visions becoming real? Like, what happened? I thought it's
Well,
like. in
I'm
her
not gonna
head,
like.
right?
I'm not gonna spoil the whole thing. Like that's pretty well like what the plot is, so that's not spoilers. Well, whatever. But that's like brought into question is what is real, what is fake for sure. But I actually, it's funny because they have similar ratings on Letterboxd. One is 3.1 and the next is 3.0. I actually did enjoy the second one a little bit more because the first one's just kind of like boring. Like it's long and drawn out, like another film we just watched. And the second one is just so campy and silly. Like every time the guitar guy shows up, there's like a guitar riff, and like everything is like crazy and pumped up to 11. So it's kind of fun. That is it for me.
Cool.
Peter, what have you been checking out?
That's so funny because you mentioned The Exorcist. Because I'm about to mention a movie where the main character thinks The Exorcist is the funniest movie of all time. Sorry, not funniest. Shit, it's the scariest movie of all time. I would just watch Ghosted yesterday. So yesterday I watched three movies.
I saw it on Letterboxd, yeah.
I
Really?
watched Guardians 1, I watched Beau, and I watched Ghosted because I was like, dude, I can't let Beau be the final movie I see that day. And I was expecting Ghosted to be actually like a funny, lighthearted movie, but oh my god, it was very lighthearted, sure, but it was not funny at all. It's actually like such a disappointment because the trailer is like nice and fast paced. Like you like hear a bunch of jokes, see a bunch of like weird, quirky action sequences between Chris Evans and Ana de Armas in like 2 minutes, and you're like, okay, this movie is fun. But then when you actually watch it, the sequences are much more drawn out, and because of that, they're just not funny at all. Like, unfortunately, this is just like another instance where like you think it would work really well. Chris Evans is a very charming, charismatic guy. Ana de Armas, very pretty, charismatic actress, but like unfortunately, like when you put these two together, things don't work out. It was zero chemistry between the two, and the movie was not funny. The highlight of the movie was Adrian Brody. Actually,
Oh, yeah?
I didn't even know he was in this movie, but he was great. Yeah, I give it a 1 star. It was do not recommend.
Yeah. We were talking before the podcast about how we hate watching clips of movies before we see the movie, but I did actually see a clip of Ghosted on Twitter.
Of them
and
running up the stairs?
Yeah, it looked, and all the comments are like, it looks like they were not on set at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like it's a green screen. It feels like that scene in Doctor Strange 2 when everyone is clearly
Yeah.
when the chamber, when everyone's clearly not there and they're not talking to each other. But yeah, like, no, it looks bad.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
confirm it is bad. Yeah, don't watch that. It's
And
like
honestly-
worse than a streaming service movie. Like
It is a streaming service movie.
exactly.
That is not surprising to me either. Like you told that to me, and I was like, yeah, that tracks. It looks bad.
Yeah.
Anyways, what else have you seen, or is that it?
I think that's it. Let me check my letterbox. I did watch snippets of the Mandal finale, and they resolved some storylines in very unexciting ways.
Yeah, I did. I read on Twitter that there's a storyline there's a problem that is brought up and solved within like 15 minutes in the
Well,
finale.
within 2 episodes. So
Oh,
like,
okay.
do you guys mind if I like get into
I don't
some
care.
spoilers?
I do not care.
I don't care.
Okay, so like basically, remember there's like a whole cloning plot that's been going on. It's like, oh, Moff Gideon wants Baby Yoda's gene so he can clone some Force wielder. Actually, in the end, he was just trying to clone himself, and then that didn't go anywhere because Din Djarin just blew everything up. So, yeah,
Nice.
Cool.
very, very,
least
very.
It's doing a better job than Mario did, which was setting up and resolving conflict in a matter of
In the same
seconds.
scene. Yeah.
Aiden, what have you been watching, listening, reading?
I've not watched, listened, read that much over the past week, but I did.
Aiden's struggling today.
I got caught up between watch and read, and so I just said I did weed. I did weed.
Aiden, weed? Aiden,
No,
no.
I have been.
Stop incriminating yourself. To quote, Beau is afraid.
Okay. I have been so I've been continuing my watch through of David Lynch and Steven Spielberg, but this week I just did a David Lynch movie. I did Mulholland Drive, which I gave 5 stars on Letterboxd. I thought this was a great movie. I thought this was like the perfect definition of like a slow burn movie that like exponentially ramps up. I think that there is a certain like plot thing that happens at the end of movies sometimes that I have never seen done well. It is almost always unsatisfying. And this is like the only movie I've ever seen that has done it in a way that is satisfactory and also like thought provoking as well. And I think only Lynch could do it
What is that?
because of like a specific
I
trial.
have seen
What?
this movie. What is that?
I don't know, Peter. Do you care if I spoil Mulholland Drive? The fact that it's all a dream.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I've never seen that done well, and it actually like because in David Lynch movies like the line between reality, fantasy, and dream is always blurred. It works like incredibly well, and especially considering that even the last part of the movie, which is like what really happened, like it's reality, because that is so dreamlike in and of itself. I think it works incredibly well. There's one shot that like I thought was just so incredible of it's like somewhat midway through the movie where it starts in close of it looks like someone singing in a booth. It looks like someone singing potentially on stage, and then we pull out and it turns out they're in a recording booth. Then we pull out more and no one's in the booth. We pull out even more, it turns out it's a movie set. We pull out even more and like we see the whole context of the set. And like I thought that was such a good encapsulation of like a lot of what the movie is. Like it's such a great moment of visual storytelling. Yeah, I loved that movie. So that was I thought it was awesome. So that was something I watched. I continued to watch The Wire. The Wire is still really great. I watched the most recent episode I watched. I think I only watched one episode this week, and it was actually, I think it was like a particularly good one. One of the major characters died in it. One of my favorite characters, and The Wire is kind of a show. It's one of the shows that like, to a certain extent, like no one is safe. Like main characters can die in the show.
These are the best type of shows, though. You know what I mean?
Sometimes, though, I think The Wire does it really well. And like, yeah, I thought like it's a really thematically driven show, and it like about showing parallels and mirrors, and yeah. So The Wire is still really great. I would recommend anyone check out The Wire. And then the other thing I did, I haven't talked about this, right? I rewatched Nope. Was that this week? I haven't brought that up on the pod.
No, I don't
Okay.
think you.
Yeah,
No, you have not.
I don't
Oh,
remember because
awesome.
we've talked about it off air, I think.
Right. Yeah, so I rewatched the movie Nope, and on rewatch, amazing movie. Incredible movie. And I think like even the problems I had, which were towards the end, I didn't really understand what they were doing. I actually like found on second watch. I was like, oh no, it's actually like pretty clear what they're doing. The things that I thought were freaky were still super freaky, like the inside jean jacket and the stuff when the kids are messing with him in the beginning. It's like a really beautiful movie. Oh my, there's the one shot of like when the blood is raining down on the house and it's a slow tilt up. Oh, that's like there's some like incredible stuff in this movie. I think Daniel Kaluuya is great. Keke Palmer is great. Yeah, I think it's a great movie. So yeah, that's what I watched.
Cool. Next week, I have to deal with my dog.
Next week. Oh, what are we doing next week, Peter? I think
Next week is
Within-
Pipeline, no?
next week is Pipeline. Yeah, we're thinking about doing How to Blow Up a Pipeline for next week.
Next week, we are in fact going to be doing How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
Dude, I thought you were
excited for
gonna
that
say next week we are indeed gonna blow up a pipeline.
Next week, we are going to we're gonna get on a watch list. But yeah, so that'll be good fun times. I'm skipping ahead. If you like us, check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Predator v Movies. If you like my thoughts on movies, check me out on Letterboxd at _AlexGordon_. I write reviews sometimes.
You can also check me out on Letterboxd. My name is 810Sunny. That's 810SONNY. My name is Wombo. I also leave reviews sometimes.
Peter,
Alex,
do
I
you
feel
have-
like you write. No. Sorry. Before we get to that, I feel like you write reviews all the time, though. You say sometimes. That's inaccurate.
Not as much anymore.
I don't write full reviews anymore, or sometimes.
Okay.
Peter, do you have
But,
anything to
hey,
plug? By
I don't have
chance?
anything to plug. You know what
That's
that
crazy.
means.
What does it mean, Peter? Actually, let's let Peter
Leave a
tell it to us.
review on Spotify, on your preferred streaming platform. Leave a comment on YouTube. Tweet at us at Predator vs. Movies.
All the
What
things.
else? I think that's it.
Like us, follow us on Facebook.
We don't
Look
have
us
to-
up
we don't have
on
Facebook.
Buena Vista.
Check out our MySpace.
Yeah. You can follow us on
wait.
Napster as well.
We do have an account on the Jeremy Renner app. I'm not sure if that's still.
Oh,
no.
yeah, I remember we did set that up, but there might be a resurgence considering like recent events with Jeremy
Yeah.
Renner. Did you
But-
actually? Side note, piece of news we watched the documentary that they're releasing on Jeremy. That is like literally like the boys like Vought Enterprises
Yeah,
like
yeah.
happening in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, go do that. Tell your friends you like this show, and yeah, get more people listening. Basically, if
Yeah.
you like this show. Until next time, I'm Alex,
I'm Peter.
I'm Aiden.
and this was Predator versus Movies. Thanks for coming out.
Oh
Oh my God, Beau's afraid again. Nice.
It's me, Beau.